Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on, what do we have? Today is Friday, July 21st. Hope everybody's excited for a great weekend. It's quite nice and warm here in Golden, Colorado, and hope you're having a good summer wherever you are. And just for a little entertainment for the weekend, today's video is about, now we're about half a year into the Trump regime. Really the question of, is Donald Trump, or better yet, can Donald Trump actually really make America great again? Now, quick disclaimer for any of you who are out there getting ready to, he's a Republican, he's a Democrat, let's get him. I think the whole thing's a bit silly, to be honest. My personal belief, feel free to agree or not, is that Democrats and the Republicans are two wings of the same party to keep everybody distracted and creating a lot of negative energy towards each other, while the guys really running the show in the shadows, a couple layers above that, just giggle and do the same thing regardless of who's in office. And one last thing to leave all you political junkies with, that you can just mull this one over. When you look at the spending, military, foreign policy, I mean, was there really much difference between Bush and Obama? If you can spot anything that there was, write a comment below. I'd be happy to discuss it and consider it. So anyway, my feeling for a while, especially seeing the ties between government and Wall Street and tank builders and all this stuff, how a lot of it does come down to the money, and for all the things these guys say they believe in, and it's always a goal to keep these videos positive, so we won't go off on a rant there, but either case, I'm not taking sides here. I guess if you really are interested, probably the closest thing I would compare to, I did like Ron Paul, a lot of the libertarian free market ideas of letting people live and create rather than having the Sopranos and the Corleones run the show and dip their beak. But in either case, with that disclaimer in place, really the important question is, let's say that Trump came in, and I'm not going to sit here and question his intention or motives, but really, does Trump or anyone else have the power or the ability to actually do what he was claiming of making America great again? For today, we'll stick perhaps just to the economic portion of that, rather than making this video a couple of hours long, putting everyone to sleep. We'll keep the exciting economic portion there, and my thought is that the answer is really yes and no. And I'll offer an explanation of that little gem there. And another quick tidbit, I didn't vote. There's a lot of reasons behind that. If anyone really wants to know more, by all means ask, and maybe we'll do another video about that at some point. But with that said, it's like if there's two people you don't respect or trust, I'm not as much of a fan of the giving away my own sovereign power just to participate. Again, that's my belief. I respect everyone to handle that decision however they see fit. But I was hoping Trump would win, simply because from my perspective, not that I think he's going to come in and fix anything. I don't even know if that's possible. But I always felt as if at least something outside of the status quo, there's at least a chance that a lot of this facade and this matrix, that this controlling government, bank, religious, all these structures that we've grown up thinking life is a certain way, which I've found it is not quite that way. A lot of folks like to let people believe it's that way so that they can control others, which not really my thing, but I guess that's how the world goes sometimes. But what I wondered is if, you have someone like Trump come in, who's not in one of the established teams, he is a little bit of a wild card. Now, I'd say half year in, so far it's been a little disappointing. First red flag to me was seeing Goldman Sachs guys go into a lot of these cabinet positions. And aside from just general nonsense that Trump could do, really when it comes down to the economics, you can build new roads and infrastructure, which funding it publicly, I would say, is not, in my opinion, the best way to go. And honestly, I'm not trying to keep the side notes down here today, but in the past 2 years, again, I'm in Golden, which is right outside of Denver. I've driven to California, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times, back, driven to New Jersey and back a couple times, and also to Oregon and back. And I'm curious, except for when they leave the cones out and block traffic, I'm always, I keep hearing these guys talk about this crumbling infrastructure. And again, this is anecdotal, but it just seems odd to me. The roads looked fine. I drove on them all right. So the idea to just tax and print so that we can, say that we've created jobs is the equivalent of digging a hole in the backyard and hiring the next guy to fill it up. Yes, it can say you created jobs, but are they productive jobs? No. And in the end, the thing that Trump could do, although so far it doesn't seem like he has much interest in doing, is addressing the monetary system. I know there's some people who think, I was always talking about silver, gold, the dollar, the Fed, what's the big freaking deal? Although as time goes on, it's amazing to me how much power this monetary system has, how distorted it is, how complex it can be, so that people often don't really see the distortions. But think about it this way, as we mentioned the other day, Fed, since the Fed was invented, the dollar's lost about 99% of its value. So you have 1% that you actually get to keep, and about half of that is tax. So, when you think about, you go out, give whatever energy, share your skills, your trade, your gift, or your business. Imagine that you're really only getting 0.5%, not even a full percent, 0.5% of what you actually earn. So let's say you're making $50,000 a year. If you were even, if the money printing was eliminated and you were even getting 5% of what you earn, imagine everyone just got a 10-time salary increase. Just imagine, I don't know, would there still be people going out beating the heck out of each other? I don't know what that sound is coming from there. I don't know if you can pick that up. Anyways, so that's just one way of putting into perspective. People hear about the money printing, they hear about the banks, they see, we lost this, bailed out that, printed that. Yet sometimes the magnitude is lost. Now, what could Trump actually do about that? Well, so far it appears as if, whether by his choice or who knows what he really wants to do and what the powers that be that, whether you're talking about the shadow government or just the known checks and balances with Congress and the Supreme Court, I hear it's like a modern day recreation of Julius Caesar from some of these White House insiders if you dig into what's really going on. So who knows how much of what he says and does is really what he says and believes. Yet, in the end, this same flawed monetary system that I can't, maybe outside of the war machine, is there something that has created more of an impediment just to people's lives around the world, not just in the U.S., especially with this dollar being the reserve currency and a lot of the inflation gets exported. So it's not just affecting people in the U.S. And, what could Trump do about that? Well, again, so far he's just done nothing. I think he talked about auditing the Fed, which I think would be a great idea for the primary reason I think become quite clear that There's a lot of stuff that isn't quite been as advertised. I heard Janet Yellen in one of her recent press conferences actually was saying that the Fed shouldn't be audited, and I can imagine that they wouldn't want that because, again, don't take my opinion, but you can just read all the stuff these guys have gotten caught doing, the nefarious money packages that go out to different places, and you know, it's not, if you audit it, it's like if you audited Bernie Madoff, you know, you're going to find answers you didn't like. I think we can extrapolate that now. So, in either case, seems like Trump's not going to do that. But really, that would be the one thing in his power if let's say, for example, that I get voted president, you know, take over tomorrow. What would be really the thing that I think could have the single biggest impact is a sound monetary system, because there's so much that stems, whether it's the funding of the government. Remember all this stuff, we're not even close to staying within the budget of what they tax, you know, the tax receipts, so you have this much money to spend, and then how much the government actually spends. It's all printed, borrowed. You know, we see these, there's the number that you see of how much the deficit is each year, but in reality, it turns out to be a lot larger because, again, the Social Security and Medicare, the accounting on that one is a little bit shady, so it just doesn't get factored in. So there's just, and all of this is dependent upon printed money. Now, let's say you had someone come in, audit the Fed, say, we're done with this, manipulating interest rates, printing. We're going to go back to a free market system where the market sets prices, entrepreneurs go out, raise capital, good ideas get funded. Yes, I think you would have something like 2008, perhaps even more severe, although I don't know that it has to be that way. And in fact, what I think is exciting about the cryptocurrencies is that we're seeing the market attempt to go back to a sound money system, whether that ultimately ends up being the cryptocurrencies, in some ways gold and silver. That's the market's natural way of resolving some of these imbalances, and we're seeing that happen, which is what I always felt ever since I started seeing this other perspective, that, you know, there's things that happen that, although what's beautiful to me about free markets and what I loved so much about the Austrian theory, and if you're not familiar with the Austrian School of Economics, go YouTube that one and have fun, and you'll be blown away by how simple finance and economics could and actually should be. But if you actually get rid of so much of this, I don't think it has to be necessarily a crisis like we've been conditioned to believe. Yes, there would be an adjustment. People are learning to go from the way they saw life to the way maybe they see life going. For example, I was sitting on a trading floor as an equity options market maker back in 2009, 10, 11, until 2012. And as I was studying what I saw as a looming problem that had to be resolved at some point, I was thinking, all right, well, here's where I am in the world today. How can I take what I have and go to where I see the world going? And I think there's a lot to be said in just the thinking about it and the preparation, because if we had the dollar collapse, which, by the way, in case you haven't been checking, the dollar index has been getting slaughtered over the past couple months, down about 10%. So, again, that's measuring the dollar against the other crappy paper currencies out there. So read into that what you will. But again, the signs are there that these things are happening. Whether Trump is supporting that or not, who knows? But in the end, I guess if he really wanted to make America great, in my opinion, well, sure there's a lot of things you could do, but some sort of sound, honest money would be a great first step. You know, you have people fighting over health care. Well, this guy should pay for it, or the government should pay for it. Or, you know, you're trying to fund these things when you have a little crumb left from the entire pie. It's all been eaten by the Fed, the banks, the monetary system. Which is why it's, I don't know, I wonder if people wonder why I've spent so much time studying currencies, the dollar, and how these things happen. Because there's so much that stems from that. We always hear follow the money. Well, you can start where the money's created. And if Trump really does want to make America great again, that's where I would suggest he looks. I did actually email the Trump administration team after they got elected saying that essentially this, and by all means, if you need any help trying to find what I would argue in time will be known as one of the greatest financial crimes in history, referring to the manipulation of the precious metals, which in my opinion, is clearly to keep this whole system in check. Because if people really start abandoning the dollar to, I mean, we've seen it happening gradually over time, but I mean, really, if we see walk away, which I believe is what was happening in 2011 and why there was that smackdown in the prices that, I mean, if the regulators couldn't see that one, I don't know where you're looking. So I tend to think there's somewhere in the government, someone has to be saying, we're okay with this. No, again, I like to be careful about what I say about anyone else, although let me put it like this. I know there are a lot of folks that I find have pretty good information that think that Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, basically has a button he can press which says, we want the market to be this, it goes there, which sounds wild, although is that different than the Fed saying we want interest rates to go here? We press the button and it happens. So it's a bizarro world. We've been conditioned to believe this is how things are supposed to work. I would argue that it's not, and that's why you get these bubbles and constant collapsing of markets. Although, as time goes on, I see more and more positive that could come out of the resolution of this system as I continue to learn about the cryptocurrencies and see the possibilities and how it's not just money, but different applications and things that can be done here. It's encouraging to see, in its own way, the market is saying some of these things need to stop. And anyway, I think that could make, it wouldn't just make America great again. I think that could make a lot of things in the world great again. I often wonder if perhaps we'll have some day where rather than thinking of each other as Americans or Persians or Russians, we could all just be people who care about each other and we're not on different teams. I've wondered sometimes if maybe that's a political thing, the way they say, well, the Russians don't like the Americans or the Persians don't like who. And I don't, especially having traveled and lived overseas for a couple of years, I never really found that to be the case. That usually seems to be more of a governmental thing and a way to do the types of things governments do. So, again, a lot of it, in my opinion, starts with the monetary system, and I'll continue to come on here every weekday and share my views of what I think is going to happen, how I think people can prepare intelligently. If any government officials want my opinion, you can leave a comment below or go to the Arcadia Economics website. And you can reach me there, and I'll be happy to offer some suggestions that I think could help a lot. So far, no one's asked, but appreciate that you're watching, and I hope you're finding this helpful in terms of thinking about what's going to happen, where we are, what has been happening, how to understand it all, piece it all together, and make some good decisions so that, hey, .com, housing bubble, currency crisis, you don't have to get clobbered by these things, especially if you understand it in advance, which is why we're here. So leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we see you again on Monday. So long.